You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings Podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to that show that you guys may have forgotten about just a little teeny weeny bit. The Horror Ramblings Podcast, the only show that is brought to you by no use of AI. Just gonna put that little tidbit in there. We are an AI-free show, as far as I know. Yeah, I mean, we could be. I don't know. How you doing, Steven? I know we've texted and stuff, but it's good to see your face via cam feed, man.
Right? No, everything's it's okay. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm okay. I don't know if I want to talk about anything personal as of yet. I'll just leave it like that.
You're alive and kicking, I guess is a.
For now.
For now. Don't you make me worry, man.
No.
You're the glue that holds this show together. I'm just the one that kind of rambles on about things.
No, I'm fine for now.
Okay. I'll accept that answer.
Okay.
How's the family? I got to ask how the family is. I know your youngest just had her birthday because she was born the day after my kid was born, which is hilarious.
Yes, she is growing. Every day you see new things, and you're just like, what happened to that smaller kid that came around? Then of course she'll come back and do something that's like, oh yeah, there she is. So she's in this transition period of growing up and still kind of being that same kid. So
it's sad because you can sort of see the I don't want to say innocence, but in a sense you see that childlike wonder and everything gradually start to fade out just a little bit, and it breaks your heart, but at the same time you know that they have to grow. I mean, little man's the same way. This birthday was weird for me because I used to be able to go to the store and get him, like I could spend $50 at the store on him for his birthday. I never spent that low of an amount. I always went overboard. I'm known for that. But you used to get all these huge, extravagant gifts for them, and then the older they get, the more expensive the gifts get, but the smaller they get.
yeah.
Like, little man wants to make YouTube videos. And I told him, I was like, I'm not going to let you put anything up on YouTube because I'm weird about that with the kids, especially.
Sure, yeah.
Like them posting up content. I said, but we'll let you film stuff and you can put it on your computer and, you can watch it and mess with it and stuff. So we got him a little camera. It wasn't anything, extravagant, but it's like, when did that shift happen? And now he's talking about getting a cell phone, and I'm like, let's slow down a little bit. It's like, come on. It's just nuts.
Well, they're in a day and age now where it's commonplace, and it's funny when you take a look at us as kids versus where kids are today. The things that we experience, and I guess it's true in any generation, it almost seems like the things that we experience, the previous generation will never experience.
Yeah.
Like I remember, and I'm sure to some degree you do too, Saturday mornings. You wake up, you get your bowl of cereal, you sit down in front of the TV, and it's Saturday morning cartoon time.
Yep.
So, and you had 3 channels, 4 if you're lucky, to choose from, and then you could pick and choose what cartoons you were watching. And sometimes you'd have that problem where 2 shows you really wanted to watch were on at the same time. You're like, damn it, what do I do? And then that's where VCRs came in.
Yes.
And you'd record what you wanted to watch. But now, kids don't have to worry about that. They have everything at their fingertips. There is no Saturday morning cartoon block. And they can just watch whatever, whenever, wherever.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, there's something lost in that.
I remember, it's not even, like, Warner Brothers had its own TV channel. They had the WB, and that used to be where I would go watch my Saturday morning cartoons. And I can't remember, there was another channel that we used to watch because they've changed the channels around here so much. But we had 2 TVs at our house at one point. I mean, now we have like 4 TVs in our house. But, back when we...
Like most.
Back when we had 2 TVs, so if nobody was watching the other TV, I'd have one channel on, and it always seemed to be, I got lucky. Typically, when commercials were on one show, the other show would be playing, so I could go back and forth between them. But Warner Brothers, they stopped. They became the CW, I think now, which I think like the Flash and Arrow and all of that is on there. But like you said, there's no Saturday morning cartoons anymore. You know, now my life consists of, because of our youngest, you know, our life consists of simply Mickey Mondays or Mickey mornings. And, you know, if I have to watch one more episode of Paw Patrol, it's nothing against those puppies, but if I have to watch one more episode of Paw Patrol, I'm going to scream. It's just, it's true though. It's like, there's something lost in it all. And I was still a kid when the internet like really started to take over. But at the same time, it's like, I got to go outside, I got to play outside, I got to learn how to do things when I wasn't obsessed with video games, because I was big into video games when I was a kid. And it's like, I got lucky there, I think. Anyone who grew up before the internet and grew up with the internet, I'm sure you can attest to this. We are lucky because we are able to do things on the internet. We are able to do things on a computer, and if we don't know how to do something on a computer, we can learn extremely fast how to do it. But we can also go out, we can change our tire, we can change our brakes on our car, we know how to change our oil. We know how to do those things. There's some kids, and I know it sounds weird for me to say this, my wife is 6 years younger than me. There are people her age that she knows that don't know how to change a tire, that don't know how to do any of these things. And to me, it's like, you're not that much younger than me, but it's like, I consider you a kid. My wife, on the other hand, she knows how to do that stuff. That's just how she was brought up. But it's like, like my son was, he come out the womb knowing how to send emails, I'm pretty sure. It's, you know, it's just, it's the way of the world today, I guess. And that's scary enough, I guess.
Yeah, it's disappointing too, because I feel like I don't get, not to say that I would always spend every waking moment with my parents as a kid, but anytime, like, I remember Thursdays, for whatever reason, I don't know why that seemed to be the day of all days, but my mom would always come home with a movie from the video store on Thursday. It'd be some new movie, something big, and I'd always look forward to it. You know, it was like, oh, what is she bringing home today? And then you'd see it, and it would be like some big, you know, action blockbuster you've been waiting for, some big comedy. And be like, oh, yeah, I'm getting to watch this, and you'd be all excited. But again, now, today, it's just like you wait until it comes out on the streaming service, $10, they've already seen it. And with my kid, the only way we ever get her to watch a movie is if we take her to the theater and she has no other alternative.
Yep.
Like, we went and saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, and we went, like, I would have went to see it regardless, but she was actually genuinely excited to go see it, which surprised the hell out of me. You know, I didn't know that she had any desire to watch a Ninja Turtle film. So when she was excited, I was like, well, hell yeah, I'm going to take her to see it. So that, and maybe even like Across the Spider-Verse, she was into that. And I'm happy. I'm glad that there are these fleeting moments where she actually wants to watch a movie. But then once it's been seen, it's like it's done. I remember, I think when we got, what was it? We had watched some movie. Oh, I remember what it was. I think it was Ant-Man 3. We'd watched that in the theater, took her to see that because I thought, well, you know, what's another ticket? I know she's not going to really give a damn, but whatever. Maybe she'll actually try to watch it. But of course, she's wallowing the seats and whatever. And then I was watching it to get it home, and she's like, oh, you're watching that again? And then just walks out of the room and was like, what do you mean? You know? But yet, Super Mario Brothers, we watched that, and I got that for her, and she watched it again at home. She was excited. So I guess it just depends on what she's into, which is fine.
Yeah.
But I don't see her watch movies in the same way that I did at her age.
Yeah.
Like, I was, whether I paid attention to them wholeheartedly or not, I do remember watching tons of movies growing up. I mean, all the ones we've talked about either here or elsewhere, just the classic movies that we grew up on.
Yeah.
That's why we grew up on them. It wasn't that, oh, yeah, we watched that, you know, when I was 20 years old or whatever, and it came out in the 80s. No, I watched it as a kid.
Yeah. And,
you know,
I don't know. There was something magical about putting a VHS into a VCR and watching a movie. And, you know, the only time that I've been able to imitate that feeling, I think, for the kids here, is when we do our movie nights outside. And I put the projector up and we do that. I feel like that kind of brings a certain magic to it. Keep in mind, we have a fire lit, and my son likes to sit around the fire and, relax, but trying to get him to watch a movie at home, again, I understand where you're coming from. It's damn near impossible. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is he watches all the content that kids watch now. It's short little snippets. It's like they've kept it short because they're like, well, if your attention span's not gonna last for a whole movie, we're just gonna we're gonna give you little tidbits. And I mean, they're putting full movies on TikTok now in like parts, so people are watching the parts, and you're watching a whole movie, but you're swiping your thumb. It's like you have to keep your thumb busy. So
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Which is ironic, too, considering if you take a look, this is a common complaint I've heard here recently as well. Anytime a big budget movie comes out nowadays, it seems like it's so long. Like they have just decided, well, everything's got to be over 2 hours. It's like, it doesn't. It really doesn't. I think the last Indiana Jones film that came out, it was almost 2 hours and 30 minutes. And it was like, Jesus Christ, you could have trimmed this down a little bit. It did not need to be that long. I've heard, and this is something that our listeners need to hear, because when I heard this, it boggles my mind. I've heard that the Five Nights at Freddy's movie may be 3 hours, and I'm like, why?
I heard that.
Why does it need to be 3 hours? Now, granted, they're going to put it on Peacock as well as theaters, so at least I could sit at home and watch 3 hours of it. But at the same time, why do you need 3 hours of this movie?
Yeah.
That is not a movie that needs to be 3 hours.
See, that's my thing. It's all about what angle you're looking at it from, because yes, there are some movies that I do feel need to be maybe 3 hours. There are some movies, like you just said, why does it need to be that long?
Yeah.
We talked about it on we've talked, I think it was our last 2 episodes before we took our break. We talked about Renfield, we talked about Evil Dead. Mm-hmm. My biggest gripe with both of those movies was I felt like those movies could have been just slightly longer. Not an hour, nothing like that. If they would have added an extra maybe 20 minutes, it would have added so much more to the film. It's like they're losing their ability to cut out in areas where they need to and add in areas that they need to, but it drives me crazy.
Yeah, you're adding stuff that doesn't need to be there, and you're missing stuff that should be there. Story development is important, and 9 times out of 10, that's where they lose a lot of their material. And it's like, well, why didn't you add a little bit of this or explain a little bit more about that? Help us have some more context to the story. But then you want to add in 20 minutes of a chase scene, and it's like, but what about that other stuff? That's more important, I feel like.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was, and I hate when I go to quote things and I can't remember exactly, but it might have been 2 people, but these things work hand in hand. It's basically, be careful what you cut, because one conversation could change everything. Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. It's, especially in horror, I don't need to watch somebody stab someone else 25 times if it's going to take away from another scene where somebody might communicate or tell us something that we want to know. And be careful what you reveal. Like,
And I've seen some smart cuts before. I mean, I've seen, but one of the beauties of DVD that doesn't seem to translate anymore, that's another topic we need to touch on before we get into this episode, is DVDs and Blu-rays, the special features. You see the deleted scenes, and I always like when they talk to the director, or the director is introducing the scene or something like that, to explain why it was cut. And sometimes it could just be like, yeah, it just wasn't working. Yeah, and I've, you've been there. I've definitely been there, where you look at something, it's like, I love this, what I'm trying to do, but it's just not working in the context of the scene. The Super Mega Crash Adventures series that I did, you talk about reworking some stuff. There would be jokes or narrative bits that I would have in, but then when I would see it play out, I was like, this is just not working.
Yeah.
I know it's not working. I can sense it's not working. So I would have to rewrite or rethink the scene as like, what do I need to make it work? So when you listen to those scenes and then you actually have the context and then you watch it, it's nice because you're like, yeah, I could see that. Okay, I understand that. But when you have no context and you're just seeing random things cut or whatever, I mean, I've seen deleted scenes sometimes where you're just like, why did you cut that? That is absolutely important to the entire story.
Oh, yeah.
That's so stupid. That's the worst cut you've ever made. So, yeah, it depends on... I don't understand the studio system sometimes. I know that the studios have a lot of sway and a lot of cuts. So whether it's a studio cut or the director cut, I don't know. But yeah. Anyway, I'm rambling on. So since I brought it up, do you want to talk about that real quick? Because there was news that came out, and I see this as more of a big studio problem right now, but I still feel like it's not going to be trickling down to some of these lower studio systems or distribution centers like Shout and Arrow and Vinegar Syndrome and stuff like that. But there was talk that Disney is going to do away with their physical media and focus solely on streaming. Now, in saying that, I did hear that was in other countries. I have not heard that being said about the United States. And I know that's just Disney, but if one big studio does it, others typically follow suit. I honestly feel like that's a bad idea.
Me too.
Because while I don't necessarily, I'm part of the Disney Movie Club, I'll just say that up front. Every month they'll come up and be like, hey, do you want this movie? And you can say yes or no. There's no, you don't have to take it. They're not going to make you take it. I think the only thing that you had to do in the movie club is you have to buy 5 movies, and then from that point on, it's whatever you want from that point. And I was like, okay, fair enough. So anytime a new Marvel movie will come out, that's my bag, I'll say yes. And then if they're doing like a double feature deal, like if they're saying, hey, well, you can get this, plus you can get, like, say, an older movie on 4K. It's like, do you have that on 4K? I was like, no, I don't. I'll take that too. And you get it at a discount. So it kind of helps you out. But I don't buy all the others because I don't have, I have childhood attachments to some of the older Disney films, but I don't, there's a rare few that I actually own. Like Toy Story, yeah, I own. I can't think of it. Cinderella, yeah, I don't own that shit, okay? Because I just don't have that connection.
Yeah.
But it's there on Disney Plus, so I know if I wanted to watch it, it's there. So I get that idea, but there is something about physical media, the collecting of these movies and preservation of these movies, I think is key. And I think that's the big part that's being argued is the preservation. Because again, like I said, with Shout Factory, Arrow Video, Vinegar Syndrome, the stuff they're doing, I'll praise them all day. There may be others that I'm not thinking of. Those are the 3 that I actually deal with the most. They've released and continue to release new, updated. They're moving into 4K transfers now. They always go back to the original negative. They clean that shit up. They preserve these films, and then they present them to you on a disc. That I don't think will ever go away.
Yeah.
I think as long as they are in business, we're okay. Because that's what they're doing. They are preserving these films. They are trying to make them as presentable as possible. Now, whether or not they can actually make them as pristine as you'd want, because I know some of them, I think it was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. I think Vinegar Syndrome released that on 4K. And there was a lot of grain. And some people like that. For me, it was a little distracting, but, it wasn't like, oh my God, I can't watch this. But I think there's a limit to how far they can go, because I don't know if they were actually able to go back and grab like a definitive original negative. So they did the best with what they could, but at least they're trying.
Yeah.
They're doing their best. So even if they don't get the most pristine cut or whatever, they're doing their best, and they're trying to make these things preserved for people to check out. And I appreciate the hell out of that.
Yeah, most definitely.
Criterion's another one. I think they do that too. So
I personally, I will agree with you there. I think a lot of it is they want more people to subscribe to their streaming service. But I think that's a dangerous game to play because, honestly, not everybody wants to subscribe to a streaming service. Not everybody knows how. Maybe people can't afford it. My biggest thing, though, is Disney and all these other streaming services, they put these films up and they say, here, we're streaming it. And then all of a sudden, a few months later, that's no longer available. Okay? That's cool. I'll buy a digital copy of it. Who's to say that those digital copies are always going to be available? I would rather have something physical that if I want to watch it, I can put it in a slot and I can watch what I want to watch.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the Toy Stories, actually. I might be wrong, but it was a Disney film. It got accidentally deleted when they were making it. I think it was Toy Story 3, maybe? 2.
No,
it was 2.
I remember that, yeah.
The only reason that they saved it was because a woman copied it because she was doing work on it at home. Mm-hmm. That is the only reason that was safe. Now, a lot of movies are being made digital. There's even... They're stopping to use regular film for live action films now. Some companies are, and to me that's dangerous. I mean,
yeah,
we live in a world where they want to burn they want to burn books, they want to outlaw certain books. Who's to say that down the road they don't start saying, well, we want to outlaw certain movies. We don't want people to watch certain movies. And if those movies become, and follow me here because this is going to sound like a crazy conspiracy theory, and I know it. I know there's probably listeners going, oh my God. But let's say there's a movie that they don't want people watching anymore. And they're like, yeah, we're no longer making physical copies of these movies. They're all going to just be digital. Mm-hmm. And a quote unquote hack happens and that movie gets deleted. A product that people have enjoyed for years gets destroyed, completely gone forever. I don't want to live in a world like that. I don't, to mention Disney, and you can judge me if you want for this. My favorite Disney movie when I was a kid was Aladdin. I love Robin Williams,
right?
Genie, Aladdin. I love the whole thing. Jafar is one of my favorite villains.
Solid movie.
Which, fun fact, was voiced by the gentleman that voices... Genie was voiced by the gentleman that voices Homer Simpson in Part 2, for people that don't know that. But anywho...
In the series.
If Aladdin were to just all of a sudden be deleted... I would be so thankful that I have a physical copy of it.
Yeah.
It's all starting to become this money grab from the studios. And I don't want to badmouth the studios. There's a lot going on at the studios right now. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things where getting rid of physical media would be a bad idea. Completely through and through.
Yeah.
It's just, let's not do that.
I mean, even to your point there, it's not unprecedented to say what you said, that they would just start outlawing movies. I mean, take a look at what the United Kingdom did way back when, the video nasties list, where they would refuse to release certain movies in that country. Now, granted, I know that they may not necessarily be from that country, so they might be safe, but it's still the same thing. You're saying that the people of that country have no choice to view or not view a movie, and you're taking that option away from them, saying that they can't make that decision for themselves. So that would be no different than banning books.
Yeah.
Because you're saying, well, we don't want you reading that, so we're going to take it away from you, and you have zero access to it. That's bullshit. So, it's not something that's never happened. It has. And with this, it could be very much in the same vein. There could be movies. So many movies that we lost in the fires way back when, in the early studio days, when they would keep those film reels in these flammable liquids, and as soon as the fire would go up, how many movies we've lost to time because of these fires. But now we have, digital can preserve them. I will argue in favor of that, but the physical copies are also there to preserve them another way. So you can have, multiple backups in the cloud, but let's also have the physical just in case something happens. You've got both. And that's why I have my physical library and I have my digital library. I love my digital library. Right. For me, sometimes, and I won't say it's all the time, but, I've heard people say, well, I don't want to get, digital copies, yada, yada. But, sometimes it's a little difficult for me to find a physical copy of a movie that I want to see. Like, one thing that I've been wanting to watch, And I've never done this before, and this will actually be something I want to talk about on future episodes, but the Hammer horror movies. I don't think I've actually sat down and watched Hammer horror films. You know, I'm very aware of them. I understand their history, but there are a lot of entries in those movies that I've never seen. So one day I just happened to be scrolling on Vudu, and there was Curse of Frankenstein for $4.99. I'm like, holy shit, that's like the start of it all. Let's do it. And I don't want to say too much about it because, like I said, I want to talk about it here.
Yeah.
But all that did was just ignite this passion to seek out these movies. So I'm starting to look up lists. I'm just like, well, all right, so which ones are next in the series, and try to figure out what fits where. But I can find not all of them, but I've found quite a few on Vudu. So I'm just kind of tagging them in a list, like a wish list, saying I want to check that one out and check that one out. So the options are there, and it's more affordable for me versus, because I looked on Amazon trying to see if there were, you know, box sets or anything, and they're few and far between. So it becomes tricky trying to find copies of these movies. So at least digital gives me an option that I didn't have. But if I could have a physical copy, I would.
Exactly.
And that's why I continue to keep my eyes on the distributors that I've mentioned before, digital. So
yeah, I mean, you know, there are so many movies. What was it that we talked about before? Oh, I can't think of the name of the movie. It's the older people in Florida, the swimming pool.
Cocoon.
Yeah. There it is. You know, you can't find a good physical copy of it because they've not re-released it, and you can't really find it on any streaming services either.
No.
That's one of those movies where it would be great. I would love it on physical or on digital. But if they were to re-release it in a physical sense, I would probably buy it right away, because the chances of that getting put on to any kind of streaming platform, I don't know how likely that is. It seems like some movies, that's the only way that you're going to get them, is if you go and you buy an old physical copy of them.
Well, I mean, it's going back to the streaming services. Another reason to have physical copies is very much what they've been doing on these streaming platforms over the last few months, where they purge content. So the movies that you've been looking for may not be on there anymore. And you're like, well, shit, I wanted to watch that. I saw it on there the other day. And then they do these rotations every month. So you may not be able to find what you're looking for. So you're stuck having to buy it if you actually want to watch it. So, I mean, they're taking options away. That's pretty much the best way to look at it.
I mean, and I understand that they have to keep their servers, from being overwhelmed and everything. And sometimes you can't keep all the content on a server. I think a lot of that has.
Right.
I think a lot of that has to do with they don't want to spend the extra money to upgrade the servers and get more. I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that, but I know money is probably a big, part of that. But I don't know. Any studio that decides they're against physical media, that to me throws up so many red flags that it's not even funny.
I'll even argue in favor of physical media for another reason entirely, is the quality in which you're being presented. Okay, now granted, all these services now say you can watch it in 4K and you can get all the best sound and all that shit. And it's like, fair, but what if by chance my internet's not working well that day? Maybe I'm not going to get the best picture. I'm not going to get the best sound because maybe it's lagging. Maybe there's something out of my control that I can't help, because sometimes I'll be watching a show and it goes from crystal clear to fuzzy.
Yep.
And then back to crystal clear and fuzzy. So I'm having this intermediate cutoff of quality because of something out of my control. But if I had a physical copy, wouldn't have that problem.
Exactly.
So that's another great argument in favor of that, because not everybody has access to great internet. I do. I'm not saying I don't. I do, but I can't control what's happening to the system. I mean, I can reboot it all day long, but I shouldn't have to do that.
No.
If I wanted to watch a movie uninterrupted with the best sound and picture quality, pop in my 4K disc. I've got the sound system for it, and it's going to rock the room.
Exactly.
That's what I want every single time.
See,
streaming platforms can't do that.
And, to get a little off subject, but sort of in the same vein, you could kind of argue the same thing with video games. there used to be a lot of incentive to buy physical copies of games because you get extra things if you buy the physical copy. And I like to have physical copies. The biggest thing about video games that has thrown me off, though, and I get it, they say that the reason that it happens is so that it's not as hard on the system and it plays a little bit better. You buy a disc, you put it in, it downloads the video game onto the console anyways. Mm-hmm. That irritates me. It really does. Yeah. At that point, it's like, do I buy a physical copy or do I just download it anyways? It's just one of those things. No. I like buying physical things though because I like the bonus stuff that you get. I like, a perfect example. We bought, we have a PS5, we have an Xbox One, and we have a Nintendo Switch. Mm-hmm. We have one of the Pokemon games for the Switch. I could have just downloaded it onto the Switch, but we bought it, and it came with a big unfoldable map, and my son absolutely loves the map. Do I need it? No, I don't need it for anything. Is it an extra little thing that made my kid happy? Yes. And this is going back, when the first Arkham Asylum game came out, mm-hmm. I pre-ordered it, went to GameStop to pick it up. Because I had a physical copy, I got a book that had like behind-the-scenes stuff, concept art, stuff like that. It had a statue that came with it, and it had a bunch of other bonus stuff. Stuff that I wouldn't have gotten if I would have just downloaded it onto the system. Mm-hmm. In a sense, I get that because it's sort of the same thing as movies. Like you said, you buy a DVD or 4K Blu-ray, you're getting all that bonus material. And to me, that's worth the investment. Especially since, I just got on HBO. Well, I guess it's just Max now, but, whatever. I just got on there yesterday, and they have a section that says, it's like, watch it while you can, or something like that. It's stuff that's getting ready to leave, and I'm scrolling through, and I'm like, I'm not going to have time to watch half this stuff. Yeah. It's like, if you don't have time to watch it, then, I get it. You're like, oh, it's been on there for months. You make time. We don't always have time, and half the time you don't know if it's available until it's about to leave the site. Right. I think Barbarian's about to go off of there, which I did watch. I got to watch, and I really enjoyed. The only movie that I did not like, I can't think of his name. He always dies in horror movies. You know who I'm talking about. He was the brother in Jeepers Creepers. He's been in all kinds of stuff.
Oh, Justin Long.
Yes, thank you, Justin Long. It's the only movie I've seen him in where I really just have not liked him. Like, he's just a prick in it.
Yeah.
And at the end, he gets what he deserves in this one. Like, sure. This one, you're just like, you kind of had that coming. Mm-hmm. But, geez Louise. Oh, while I'm thinking, sorry, I'm getting really random thoughts here. Have you seen any videos of the movie Cobweb?
I have heard about it. Read some reviews about it. I'm intrigued. I like the two leads.
Yeah, I had it kind of spoiled for me a little bit, but it definitely has I guess I could say twist to a degree that I did not see coming. And yeah, I think it's definitely worth a watch. It has like a 5.6 out of 10, I think, on IMDb, and normally I go normally I go off of IMDb just for the simple fact that, if it's got a 5 or above, I'll give it a watch, just because it's like, well, half the people that watched it either loved it or hated it, and we all have our preferences. I finally got to watch the movie Let's Play. I don't know if you've seen that. I think it's called Let's Play, if I remember right. Really enjoyed it. It's actually really cool. The monster in it is practical effects. Yeah, a big puppet, and they did some CGI, but man, sorry, I'm all over the place.
No, you're fine.
I know you wanted.
Well, since we were talking about physical media, I thought I would throw out some new releases that were upcoming that I heard about that I'm all excited for, because there were, since we've been off, I've seen several announcements of some classic horror movies coming to 4K, which have excited the hell out of me, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting some of the details down. So one in particular, and I feel like this is more of a, I want to say cash grab, because I know they've released this collection in 4K before. but Universal seems to be re-releasing the Universal Classic Monsters in 4K again. And I'm almost positive they've done that before. I'm almost positive I've seen, because I've got a Blu-ray set which is all of the movies, like every Dracula, every Frankenstein, every Wolfman, every, all of the movies. But then there was a 4K set that came out. There were just the big ones. So it was just Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon. So just all the big ones.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're re-releasing that same set again, but just new packaging. And I'm not quite sure why. But other than, money. Because I don't really know what more you can do. And honestly, I know I've been advocating for 4K, but I feel like a lot of older movies, especially those, are you really going to tell a difference? You know what I mean?
Honestly, when they do movies in 4K, especially like you said, some of the older movies, you get that graininess that you talk about. And
yeah,
it seems like in the shadows on the movies and in the dark spots on the movies, that's where you really notice it. It's almost like a staticky look sometimes.
Yeah.
And I feel like with those movies, it would just really take away from it.
Yeah, and a lot of my big arguments when it comes to Blu-ray versus 4K is if you watch, say, a newer movie, they released on Blu-ray and then you have a 4K version, there is a very distinct tell, I feel, when it comes to the colors. Because I feel like on Blu-ray, everything's so bright and vibrant and almost to the point where it's like, holy shit, it's it's way too bright. But then when you compare it to 4K, it's like they've toned it down. Everything is rich. Everything is clean. And you can see just every little fiber, but the colors are muted just a little bit, to where it's just not like, burning your eye sockets out. So when you do that comparison, it's like, okay, I prefer 4K for that very thing because you're giving me the quality over here, but you've just toned down the colors just enough to where I can really enjoy it, and I appreciate that. So that's my argument there. But when you look at some older movies that it really wasn't meant for that, like they weren't thinking about that at the time, Blu-ray kind of cuts it, It doesn't feel like this could look so much better. I don't know what you could do to make this movie look so much better unless you went above and beyond like they did with Jaws. I watched the documentary about taking that to 4K, or the behind the scenes, and they took their time. They made damn sure to clean it up to the nth degree, like going back to the original negatives. That's how much care they put into it.
Yeah.
That's the kind of care I feel like all these other distributors put into it. But not all the studios are going to spend that money. They don't give a damn. So it doesn't matter. And again, with the Universal Classics, you've cleaned them up as best you can. They're in black and white. The colors aren't really going to pop one way or the other, so it doesn't matter to me. So it looks fine on Blu-ray. So I'm perfectly fine having that. And I don't know if I would jump at 4K version. You know what I'm saying? It just seems counterproductive. Someone would have to show me why I need the 4K version for me to actually get it.
Unless it had some behind the scenes stuff that they'd never had out before, or something of that nature. I don't see the point. I think you have more 4K collector's items and Blu-rays than I do. I've always just been, if I see it on Blu-ray, I'll pick it up if it's an older thing. I have a few things that I want to get in 4K, but not a ton. But I never really thought about what you had just said until you said it about the colors being a little more muted. And now that you were talking about it, I'm like thinking about movies that I've seen in 4K and compared to regular Blu-ray, and you're right.
Yeah, it's a little thing, but I mean, once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it's like, holy shit, yeah, so you can tell. So while you're talking about that, because this is actually one of the movie sets that I was very, very close to buying, and since I've kind of put the brakes on buying Blu-ray, waiting to see if 4K will come out, so I'm just trying to bide my time a little bit, just in case, like, again, there's a few, like I bought, this was a film series that I kind of wanted to see and had always heard about. It's called Daijiman, and it's a kaiju film that is about like this wrathful god, and there was like 3 movies. It was a trilogy that they made, and I'd never seen them. So I thought, I'm kaiju fan, Godzilla, King Kong, and all that, and I like Gamera just the same. So this was another avenue that I've never explored, and I saw it on Arrow Video, and I thought, you know what, fuck it. If they don't, it's not 4K, it's Blu-ray, but who cares? I've never seen these. Let's give them a go. Got them. They look perfectly fine on Blu-ray. Like, I don't know, again, how you can make it look any better. The colors aren't like popping to the point where I can't stand it or anything like that. They look fine.
Yeah.
As is. So I think I would be perfectly happy just having that set for the rest of my days. But another set that Arrow, ironically, was also putting out, or they had released previously, was Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2. And I've been eyeballing them, and I've wanted to get copies, but I was just like, this is Hellraiser. They'll do 4K eventually. I've noticed they're starting to do trickle in 4K here and there, so I'm going to wait. And sure enough, there was an announcement that Arrow is going to release a Hellraiser box set in 4K. It'll be Hellraiser 1 through 4. And this is the very interesting part of the whole set, is that they're going to release a work print cut of Part 4, which was, I guess, the original intention of Kevin Yagher, who directed that film, but took his name off because he was pissed at the studio for doing their cuts. So if you actually watch the original cut, the director's name is Alan Smithy, and if you're aware of what that is, if any of our listeners don't know what Alan Smithy is, that is a surname or a moniker used by directors who don't want their name attached to a film. So they just credit it to Alan Smithy. So he did that, and he was like, fuck it, this is not my movie, I don't want it. So apparently they've cobbled together a work print so you can actually see the movie as it was intended, or at least to, I guess, what degree they have of the work print. I don't know. And I don't know if they're going to clean it up, if they're going to try to present it in any form that would be close to that, or what I'm saying. I don't know how deep they're going to go into it. So when I'm hearing work print, I'm thinking you'll probably get some questionable visuals here and there, because there's only so much you can do. I mean, it was probably like when Shout Factory was able to unearth like the gore from Friday the 13th Part 7. Somebody had it on an old VHS tape, but there's not much you can do with that.
Yeah.
So they couldn't really integrate it back in, but they did show it, like present it. It's like, here's all the gore you couldn't get in the movie, and I wish we could put it back in, but there's really not much we can do about it. So at least you get to see it, and it would have been cool to see in the movie, but it's a shame. It really is. So, but yeah, Hellraiser, 4K, Arrow Video, and we'll get a possible better cut of Hellraiser 4 if you're not a fan of that one. I personally think, I know 3 gets thrown under the bus a lot, but I kind of like it. I don't know what it is. Maybe I have some attachments to it because I kind of grew up watching a little bit more. It's probably the one I watched the most because it was just, I had access to it before I got, access to the original 2. But no, I think it's a nice, it connects to Part 2 in a way that kind of continues that thread. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it works within the context of making a nice trilogy, if you will. But the first one is, a classic beyond classic, so we won't even touch on that. But yeah, Hellraiser, I don't remember a release date. And also do keep this in mind, too, as you're hearing this, as I'm announcing some of these things. Some of the announcements that I've seen say that these are UK releases. Now, they may be region-free, but now Arrow is, I think they're based out of the United Kingdom, so understandable that they're announcing it there. But I don't see them not making a U.S. cut for stateside release, so just be aware that if it's not available now, I'm sure it will be at some point. I don't see them holding out, for something like that. I think we'll want to see it just as much. And I also think this is also coming from Arrow, if I'm not mistaken, is they announced, and I'm really excited about this because this will just complete my collection, a Psycho box set.
Oh.
But this will not contain the original Psycho, but 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
On 4K. I already have Psycho on 4K. I got it as part of like an Alfred Hitchcock collection. It was part of, I felt like that was a steal, if you think about it. I think it was Psycho, Rear Window, The Birds, and Vertigo. All on 4K, all in one set. I was like, shit, that's 4 classics right there. Sign me up. So I didn't hesitate. So, but I've never had. I think I've got one of those cheap Blu-ray, or not Blu-ray, the old DVDs where they'd cram all the movies onto one disc.
Yeah.
I've got that of Psycho 2, 3, and 4. Just this cheap little. It's like, well, there you go. You got all the movies now. It's like, well, yeah, I guess you just kind of compress them down into to fit them all on one disc. But it seems like they're going to take a little bit more care and time into it. Again, Psycho's another franchise we haven't really touched on too deep. I'd love to talk about here, and each one of those I feel like has their own flavor.
Yeah.
I feel like it's an interesting quadrilogy, I guess that's what you'd call it. That each entry does something new, but that's for another time. Was there another? Oh, Pumpkinhead. Pumpkinhead,
yes.
yeah.
I was going to say, if you forgot that one, I would tell you.
Yeah, Pumpkinhead. We just saw that Pumpkinhead is getting a 4K release, and I think Shout or Scream Factory is doing that. So let me crack that open because I didn't even read the article, but I was so excited because Pumpkinhead is one of my all-time favorites.
Real quick, just to say this, I feel like Pumpkinhead is one of the most underappreciated horror movies.
It is.
Because it is phenomenal. You have an amazing creature design. The story is heartbreaking if you really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, it's got Lance Henriksen in it. Come on.
Yeah.
He's horror royalty in his own right.
Boo. What?
Uh-oh.
Boo.
Oh, no.
Shit. I missed my chance. This would have been a great birthday present because it's coming out on October 10th. So I would have been a day late, but still. And I've missed my opportunity. So if you order from Shout Factory, just so people are aware, if you order from Shout Factory, there's typically bonus stuff you can get. So if you can get a collector's edition, you can get a nice poster. If people could see video, you could see all the posters I got on the back wall that I've gotten pretty much because of Shout Factory. Well, the limited edition poster has sold out. So I have missed that. I am pissed.
Damn.
Because I bet you it would have been this cover art, and the cover art is like the original poster, like where he's just standing beside that gnarled tree, just like, and the moonlight's behind him. God damn it, man! And I just read this. How did I miss it?
Oh, hell.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
You have every right to boo right now. So
that story came out a day ago, according to this website.
Sold out.
They sold out August 1st. It's been 12 days, so people have known. How did I miss this? I'm upset.
Don't feel too bad. You sent me that poster a while back from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't get the chance. So, man.
But hey, the movie's still there. I can still pre-order the movie. I just won't get all the bells and whistles. But there are other bells and whistles sometimes because the set. Okay, here. But see, now how's that going to work? Because they said with the collector's edition, yeah, it's sold out, but then they have a collector's edition, which comes with a poster, a sticker, lobby cards, and enamel pins. I mean, if I'm paying for that, am I not getting a poster?
True.
You know what I mean?
And I know you said you weren't big on the pins, so.
No, and I like posters, but all the other extra stuff is just like, and I'm not paying an extra $100 for a poster.
Right. See, we get the enamel pins when we go to the conventions, but we're gonna do like a big shadow box type deal and put them all in there. That's a bummer, I'll tell you what, if people want to support the show financially and we can get some cash, or if I win the lottery to make it up for you, we'll go to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house for your birthday for dinner. Because, they're doing that.
I would love
they're
that.
doing that now, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. I would love that. I've seen pictures of what they've done to the gas station, too, and all that. And it's just like, man, I want to go. I've never wanted to go to Texas before until now.
Right.
Because that's a shit show that we don't need to talk about. But anyway, what else? What else is coming? Oh, wow, that was nice.
Oh, Lord.
I click off to go back to the website, and I'm watching some dude scratch his ass. I don't know why that's an ad.
Well,
Jesus Christ. The things that happened. Was there anything else?
Oh, my goodness.
Physical media. I think that might have been it. I know that there was a talk of steelbook release of Halloween H2O, but that's already been out on 4K, so I don't know who's releasing that.
That's another movie that I actually like.
Yeah, I do too. I've heard some. I actually watched I guess it's a retrospective on it, talking about some of the behind the scenes drama. Learned a few little things that I didn't know about. Like, I feel like I've heard this recently about the ending. Apparently, Jamie Lee Curtis signed on with the explicit instructions that she killed Michael Myers. Period.
Oh.
And then the producers were like, well, we can't do that because then we won't have sequels. What if it makes money? And they went around her to make that shit happen. It was like, well, what if we just film all this other shit and she don't have to know about it and then we can fake it out. So if we do a sequel, and then it can be like, look, he survived.
Wow.
So then they pretty much bullshit her into that. So I feel like she got the last laugh out of it. So she was like, okay, so if you want me to come back, you're going to pay me for a cameo. So she's essentially got $10 million to show up in Resurrection just to die.
Wow.
But you know what? She signed on for that one thing. That was the whole reason. And they fucked her on it. So I feel like that was a fair trade.
It's like a love-hate thing, I think, with her and in the Halloween franchise. Like, I feel like for the longest time, she wanted to try to get away from it to some degree. But then I think she just sort of embraced it. And obviously, you know, she set up a fantastic deal when they did the newer trilogy that they did. Mm-hmm. She set up one hell of a deal, and you know she made a decent amount off of that. But
I don't think that's very uncommon for a lot of actors. I mean, hell, look at Kevin Bacon. I know I don't think I've ever heard him speak publicly about Friday the 13th, but even Tremors is a fucking phenomenal movie, and he tried to avoid it like the plague for years.
Yeah.
And has just recently come around to realizing how much it means to people, how amazing it would be to have him back. And I don't know why it takes being away from it for so long to finally understand why people appreciate it, why people love it. I mean, you're part of it. You're one of the reasons people love this stuff so much. So same with her. I think she saw fan appreciation, like at cons and stuff like that. Yeah. So it finally clicked.
Well, you know, and it's you have some people who embrace it. You know, Kane Hodder as Jason. He's embraced that. Robert Englund as, you know, Freddy. One that I don't talk about a lot, and I want to make sure I got it right. Tobin Bell, is that his name? That plays Jigsaw. You know, he's coming back again. They're doing another Saw. Which
that's something that showed up while we were gone.
Actually looks like it might be pretty good. Like, I feel like he's the important part of the Saw movies. Like,
he's the draw.
Yeah, it's just you hear that voice and you see his face and you're just like, oh yeah. Like, it's exciting. You know,
sure.
It's just like they did the new Insidious. They sort of went back to sort of the original story, and you've got the original cast in it and everything, which is just phenomenal.
Okay, I gotta admit something. I have never watched one Insidious film
really?
Ever. And I know that I should. I've heard people talk about them. I don't know what the variance is, because this was 5, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The Red Door?
Yeah. I'll be honest, to me, the first 2 are my favorites. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say that any of them are bad, because I don't think any of them are necessarily bad. But as far as, like, the standouts, the first 2 are my favorite. And the first one did something that a lot of movies didn't do up until that point. And you get a random scare. I guess you could say scare. Apparently, I must be a psycho or something, because I get jump scared maybe every so often. But I remember going to the theater with a buddy of mine, and there's a scene in it where nothing is out of the ordinary. They're having a conversation, and then the camera pans over and you see something, and it's like, I remember being in the theater. I was like, holy shit! Like, I said that out loud. And my buddy that was next to me, same thing. Like, he was just like, whoa. And super effective. And there's a demon in the first one, and they've brought him back for this one. I think this one is supposed to be sort of the one that closes everything out.
Gotcha. Like a door.
Yeah. But it looks like it. I mean, I've heard good things about it. Apparently it was doing really well at the box office, too. Of course, nothing's beating Barbie right now. Barbie's tearing it up at the box office.
That's right, baby.
what is it?
All this woke shit.
Barbenheimer is what they've been calling it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
I did want to go see Oppenheimer and Barbie, but opportunities have not been available. Like they're doing what was it they were doing a double feature with? Because you'd think our drive-in would have done Barbenheimer.
You would think. I know one of the ones
but
here
they didn't.
One of the ones around here did. I do know that.
Yeah, no, they have not shown Oppenheimer at all at this theater down here. They showed that one piece of shit movie. Yeah, and I'm going to say that, and if you're one of these people who like it, good on you, I guess. But I just, Sound of Freedom, where it's about the child abduction, whose director was arrested for child abduction. No, I'm not fucking joking.
I didn't
Look
know
that
anything
shit
about
up.
this movie, so...
Yeah, it's some right-wing propaganda horse shit. So, of course, they show that in Tennessee when, you know, all about that, but they're not going to show Oppenheimer. But anyway, they're showing Barbie and the Meg this weekend, and I thought that would be fun. But I just have not had, I don't know if I'll have the time to go, and it's disappointing because I want to see these movies, but I just, time, you know? And if I could just go alone, maybe that would help. But, what else? Okay, so one other release that's coming to 4K that I just remembered was The Mist. Stephen King's The Mist is coming to 4K. And they're going to put they're putting a black and white cut on there. I don't know what that's all about, but yeah, there you go if you're looking forward to that.
That's intriguing. That is extremely intriguing.
So that one might actually wind up on my collection, maybe.
It'd be cool to see it in black and white now that I'm thinking about it. That would be really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
It's kind of like you don't think about it until you actually see it. Like I watched Logan in black and white. Like they released a black and white cut of that, and I was just like, yeah, I see what you're doing here. Like I feel the aesthetic because when you see it in black and white, and this may have been Frank Darabont's concept behind it, is like with Logan, they shot it as if it was meant to be in black and white, but then obviously they have to do it with color.
Yeah.
But then when you see it in black and white, all the blacks are just, so deep. And then you see it, you're just like, I see what you were trying to do here. I see the aesthetic, and it just works.
Draws you in.
So maybe Darabont was doing the same thing, yeah.
I have to tell you this real quick, speaking of black and white. Sorry to interrupt you, but Young Frankenstein,
Yeah.
That movie's in black and white. They filmed it when movies, they could have filmed it in color if they wanted to, but they filmed it in black and white. I had to explain that to my son, and I won't go into a bunch of details, but explaining, he was eight at the time. He's 9 now, but he was 8 at the time. And explaining that to an 8-year-old, why they filmed it in black and white when they could have filmed it in color, is the funniest thing I think I've ever had to do in my life. So I'm just going to leave it at that, but it was great.
No, I can understand that would probably be a difficult conversation. But in some instances, I mean, the fact that you even brought up Young Frankenstein, that actually kind of works with another movie that I was thinking of, because it's a Mel Brooks produced film that he took his name off of because he didn't want people getting the wrong idea.
I think I remember
and
you
I
telling me about
appreciated
this.
That. But The Elephant Man
Yes.
is a movie that he produced. I think the only name of his that's on there is his company, Brooks Films. But he left his name off because he was like, I don't want people thinking this is a comedy, because he was so heavily associated with it at the time. And I think the movie came out in 1980. And they filmed it in black and white. Like they went and got original stock, black and white stock film for this movie. And they said the reason they wanted to do it in black and white as opposed to color is because they felt that it helped the audience maybe see John Merrick, I was trying to remember his name, in a less horrifying light, because with the color, then you have to try to work everything out with how the body looks in color. But in black and white, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like it presents him in a better light so people wouldn't be horrified. And it's a tragedy that he would, you look on him with horror anyway. He can't help how he looked. But I appreciated what they were looking at, because they didn't want people to be like, oh my God. It was just like, no, we're trying to present him in the best way possible so you can see this was a human being who couldn't help how he looked, but, this is the way it is. So, okay, so I got 2 other stories I wanted to bring up, and I guess we'll start with one that will kind of go into the other because they are kind of hand in hand. First is we lost William Friedkin while we were off. I feel like that was was it last week or was it this week? I feel like it was last week.
Trying to remember.
But for those who may not know, he was the director of The Exorcist, most famously. Done a bunch of other work since, but that's the one that everyone kind of points to and is like, oh yeah, the guy that directed The Exorcist. So, that's a loss for the horror community because The Exorcist, that's another one that's coming to 4K. Boom, see, I remembered. That's end of October, I'm almost positive. I remember reading that, so there's going to be a 4K of that. And that's another movie I'd love to talk about here and in greater detail because that's a classic in its own right. I mean, there's a lot that it did at the time that broke some barriers on what was acceptable. And it's funny, too, when you think about some of the shit that has been cut in other movies and has maintained in that movie. And we're like, how can you compare this to that? And this gets an R rating and this gets an R rating? And come on, man. I mean, it's... I don't get it sometimes, but I feel like the MPAA is just a bunch of hypocrites and
pick and choose.
Yep, I've said it here, I think here before, where filmmakers have been told they got to cut shit and they'll go back and resubmit the same damn movie, and I'm like, all right, well, it's fine now. And it's like, I didn't cut anything, you son of a bitch, and they just let it go. It's like, why not?
Like
they're not arguing.
Whoever's looking at it, what kind of day they're having.
Yeah. But on a similar note, we also got a trailer for Exorcist Believer.
Yes.
Which is David Gordon Green's sequel to, I'm assuming, just the original. I'm assuming he's taking the same formula as he did with Halloween and say, okay, the first one happened, and then go from there.
Yeah.
Because we're getting... It just looks like another exorcism, or not exorcism, possession, I guess I should say, except this time it's happening to two girls.
Yeah.
And then they bring in Ellen Burstyn from the original film because she's had quote unquote experience with this kind of thing. And I'm a little, I guess that use of her was a little odd to me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to judge the movie yet because we haven't seen it or anything like that, but it was just, how is her having been through that? She didn't do anything. Yeah, I mean, not to knock the character or anything like that, but she was the mom. She was worried about her kid. She saw what happened, but she wasn't actively participating in the exorcism.
Yeah.
So how does she become like a source of information on this? She can kind of walk them through what's going to go down.
Yeah.
But getting rid of it all should be like, well, you're just going to have to call an exorcist because that's what I did.
See, and I wonder if they're going to maybe build upon the original story and maybe some things, happened in between these two films that we might, maybe we didn't see. Maybe she started looking into things more. Maybe she figured out, who's to say that they didn't get haunted again, that there wasn't some kind of possession that happened again. I mean, I'm not going to, throw out a bunch of, theories, but,
No, but...
who knows what they might have built upon,
Yeah, and, I mean, bringing her back, I think the primary person that I feel like should have been brought back, and I've heard that she may be involved in maybe, the sequel after this, because I think this is also another planned trilogy, kind of like what they did with Halloween, that they were going to bring back Linda Blair, because I feel like she would be the one that you would contact, Like, oh, you were possessed? Yeah, we need your insight. What do we do? Now, granted, she might not remember everything. I don't know. I'm curious how they might explore that if they do in a later sequel. But, I mean, it's cool to see Ellen Burstyn back. I love Ellen Burstyn. I think she's a great actress. Fucking Requiem for a Dream, she owned that Oscar she got for that, because holy shit. But I just don't understand how she fits into the larger narrative. Maybe the trailer's just not doing it justice, and we'll have to actually watch it to understand it. Maybe, I don't know. But I'm intrigued by it. I'm interested to watch it, but I'm weary because I don't understand what's going on, and this is coming from a person who will defend David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy to the death. despite what anyone said about it, because I thought it was solid. So I have faith that he's going to present something really awesome, but time will tell. I don't know. Trying to think of one other thing I wanted to bring up, and there may be others if I can remember, but I thought this was kind of interesting. There is a book coming out that is celebrating the making of Sleepaway Camp for its 40th anniversary. And along with a book, which I'm assuming it'll have stories and pictures and what have you, but they're also releasing a 4-song EP to go along with it, which will include the song at the end of the movie, Angela's theme, Just What I've Been Looking For, which is a catchy tune that just does not fit in to the end of the movie after you see her just face and then this, "You just what I've been looking for." And you're just like, what is going on? It just adds to the uncomfortableness of that entire ending. But, speaking of this film, and I know we've kind of talked about it or touched on it a little bit, it occurred to me because I don't know if I've talked to you about this before, but I remember there was I feel like it was a Facebook group or a Twitter. I feel it might have been a Facebook group. Someone was asking for horror recommendations, It's like, something that just really wowed me. And I was like, okay, I got one. And I said, dude, Sleepaway Camp. I said, the ending will blow your mind. And I know that the movie up to that point is very by the numbers. But it's that ending, that twist, that just blows your mind because you don't see it coming. That's the last thing in the world that you're going to expect out of this movie if you have no expectations, because I sure as hell didn't the first time I watched it. I was like, what the fuck is happening? So when I gave him that suggestion, he was like, okay. And then there were other people who were like, yes, yes, yes. They were all for it. The next day, I get a response from this person, and they were angry as hell. I mean, just like, this ending is so insensitive and blah, 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 and problematic. Now, I understand that conversation has been had, but I've also heard that the LGBTQ community has embraced this film. And I almost found it, as I've thought about it over time, where some might see this as problematic, as if saying that, transitioning will turn her into a monster or whatever. I would almost see it as maybe embracing who she is, like deep down is that final scene is Angela saying, no, this is who I am, I'm embracing it, versus saying she's a monster. It's not that. It's almost like coming out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe I'm putting too much on it, but I feel like that's a great way to look at it. Not the intention, but how you can kind of reinterpret it. Is in that moment, she's been hiding in the shadows the entire time, and then finally she just said, fuck it, I'm embracing it. And then you even follow that into 2 and 3, where she's just gone full psycho, and they don't even touch on that really anymore. So she just finally found who she is, who she's supposed to be. It's Angela, I am a woman, and that's that. So if I'm wrong, let me know, comments or whatever, but just a different perspective on it to kind of empower it versus make it seem problematic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think people want to just look into things too much anymore.
Yeah.
First time that I watched it and the twist happened, I was like, huh, I did not see that coming. And
no,
I just left it at that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm glad to see it's getting some love, though.
Yeah.
Because it's another one of those movies that's kind of slept on.
Yeah, I mean, and for, like I said, it is a little by the numbers when you compare it to so many, but there's some wild shit in that movie besides the ending. The ending is just the cherry on top, because you're under this impression watching the film. It's like, well, shit, it'll be either the brother or it's going to be Angela, but it's how it is that throws you off. It's like, whoa, what? And then you're trying to piece it together in your head as to what happened, because they don't really tell you.
No, you get like little flashbacks, and that's about it.
Yeah, and it's not until the very, very end where you're starting to see everything kind of play out. It's like, wait a second, what happened? And then you're like, oh,
yep.
Oh. And then she's just standing there in full glory, and you're like, whoa, shit, I did not see that.
There's a movie that the ending's not like that exactly, but it kind of has like a twist ending, kind of like that. Mm-hmm. To a degree that involves like siblings and everything. It's called The Uninvited. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I know I've heard of it, but I don't think I've ever seen it.
I watched it because I had a crush on the one girl in it back in the day, and I liked seeing her in everything. I think she was the main girl in there was a movie called Sucker Punch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She was the main girl in that. But if you get the chance to watch The Uninvited, the twist at the end of that movie, you'll be like, what the hell?
All right.
And it has a good way of making you think that something supernatural is going on, but it's not necessarily something supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
And I love movies that do that. Speaking of movies, real quick, this just popped into my head. There's another movie on Shudder. It's a Shudder exclusive. It's called The Unwelcome.
Mm-hmm.
Check that out if you get a chance.
Okay.
It's about, they call them the Red Hats. They're like goblins.
Okay.
It's about that. A family moves to the husband. His aunt dies, and they want to get out of the city because they get attacked in the city, and they're worried about their unborn child and about themselves. You know, their safety and everything. So they move to this town, and shit kind of hits the fan in the town, and the Red Hats sort of help them. It's not a real long watch. I'm not going to tell you it's the best movie ever, but I enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if you get the chance.
Well, while you're speaking of Shudder, Sharksploitation, have you seen that on Shudder?
No, I have not.
It's a documentary about shark movies. And while you might think, I mean, Jaws is pretty much the impetus of the entire sharksploitation genre, but they even kind of go farther back to where I guess the use of sharks as deadly creatures was kind of used prior to Jaws, but not to the same effect. Mm-hmm. So they touch on a few in the past, then they kind of center on Jaws for a bit to kind of talk about what it did and how, like studios do, they're like, oh, we have to copy that. We got to do that same thing. So then you start seeing these Jaws ripoffs, movies that are trying to be the same thing. But then they kind of bounce. They don't just necessarily always stay like a linear path. They'll talk about, say, start at Jaws, and then they'll swing back up to something like The Meg. Then they'll come back and talk about something. And then they kind of bounce around the timeline, which I kind of appreciated. So it's not just a linear path.
Yeah. But
they touch on a lot of pretty big milestones in sharksploitation in general. And they talk to a lot of interesting, familiar faces that we all know. And I highly recommend it, especially if you love shark movies. I wish they would have done a deep dive into a few others. Like, two that just stand out in my mind is like, how the fuck? One is The Last Shark, which was an Italian Jaws ripoff. And if you're familiar with 1 and 2, it's essentially taking those plots, combining them. And then I almost feel like that they literally ripped off certain scenes and characters. Even Vic Morrow is in the movie, who, if you might not know the name, he was the man who was tragically killed in the Twilight Zone filming. He was the Quint of the movie, and I swear to God, they made him look like Quint.
Oh, Lord.
So it's just, yeah, but Italians are known for ripping off shit, so they didn't really touch on that. They did kind of mention it in passing, but it's just kind of glossed over. And then the other was another that I fucking hate this movie so much. It angered me. Like, I watched it just out of sheer curiosity, and it just amused and angered me all at the same time. It's called Cruel Jaws, and it's been marketed as Jaws 5 in other countries and shit like that.
I remember you talking about this.
The worst acting you could ever imagine, a story that makes no fucking sense, and they literally lifted scenes from Jaws movies, all of them, and inserted them into the movie. And then when they actually show their shark, it's just some little toy float. Oh my God. It's one of those that you would have to watch with friends, drunk, high, or something like that, just to make fun of, because it's horrible. Anyway, there were two other things I was trying to remember that I wanted to touch on, because there was so much horror stuff that came out.
I gotta say real quick while you're thinking on those things, I can see a good movie night. Jaws would be included. I really like Deep Blue Sea. I think that's a great shark movie. That, and I'll even say, I don't know much about this second Meg movie that came out, but I just watched the first one yesterday. I actually really enjoyed the Meg. It was over the top, and it was enjoyable.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say this too. We ever do a movie night, like we get together and we're like, we're gonna watch movies, and we do like Killer Animal Night, Jaws, obviously, maybe Deep Blue Sea. I'm gonna say Crawl because Crawl is fantastic.
That's an underrated movie right there.
There is another movie about a alligator that came out. It's on Shudder, I think, and I can't think of the name of it. That's escaping me, but it involves a guy finds himself in a pool.
The Pool.
Is that what it's called?
I've watched
The Pool?
that.
Is it good?
Yeah, The Pool.
I've heard great things about it.
I really enjoyed it. That was one of those situation movies that I was watching, or I think I saw a trailer for it during the last drive-in one time, and I thought, oh shit, that seems interesting. The only thing that I would say that kind of hurts it a little bit is the use of some shoddy CG shots of the alligator. But again, I understand it's probably not ideal having a real alligator
Right.
or crocodile in the pool with this man. But at times it's you see it and you're like, but I mean, just the concept alone, I wish that's one of those that if they could get a decent budget,
Yeah.
remake over here, I'm sold, man, because it's
I heard
it's intense.
I heard great things about it, and I actually really like the original Python, the one with Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah.
And I think Ice Cube's
Or
in it.
Anaconda.
Anaconda, sorry, not Python. Anaconda, yeah.
But Python is one of those movies.
Yeah, but Anaconda was the original one was actually really good. I'll give that all day. And a movie we've talked about on here, Lake Placid.
Yeah.
I'll put that out there too.
I had fun with that.
And anybody who's listening, and I know that I've had you look it up before and you thought it was cool, they built a giant animatronic alligator for that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. You know,
Yeah.
if it were me and they could take all of, just leave the shell and just leave the shell float in the water, could you imagine people going swimming with their family or something and running into that thing? I mean, come on.
Pissing. Like, my God.
Yeah, I would be all done. I mean, I don't know. There's a market out there for animal movies. I know there's another movie where a lady wakes up in her apartment and somebody puts a tiger in this lady's apartment, and her and her son have to try to survive through this. And I can't think of the name of this movie either, but I've seen clips of it, and I mean, the clips that I've seen of it are intense. Like, it gets into the bedroom and she throws the bed up, and it's trying to get her through the bed, and she just barely gets out. And there's another part where she's climbing up in the heating duct, and it's clawing at her, trying to get to her. And I mean, I'll have to see if I can find the movie, but there's one like that, and there's another one about a lion that gets loose, and it's like killing all these people in this town.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where there's a little girl, and she goes down the slide, and it's at the bottom of the slide, and she freaks out, and she starts climbing up the slide, and it's trying to get her. Well, she comes down the slide, and when she comes down, she's like got her hands over her face, like, worried that this is the end, and then it's gone. Like it went off to find somebody else or something. But I don't know. I love killer animal movies.
Yeah, no, if you do them right, man, they're intense. And the pool definitely was intense because it's a deep ass pool, and you're stuck down there with, I would assume it's a crocodile. It may be an alligator. I'm not sure. I know that some are more indigenous to certain parts, and I'm not sure. I feel like gators are our thing.
Yeah.
Crocodiles are like, so it might be a croc. I don't know. Anyway, point being, it's a big lizard with snappy jaws.
Yeah.
And dude is stuck down there with it, and he's just trying to find his way out, and shit's intense. What else did I want to talk about? There was
You just made me think of like a Komodo dragon horror movie would be cool.
Ooh, yeah.
Like
That'd
being
be
stuck on an island with them. But anyway, sorry.
There was a Twilight of the Dead, which was the, I guess, former George Romero zombie project. I guess the one that he was wanting to do before he passed, and then it's finally getting underway.
I think he has a son, I think, that does movies as well, doesn't he?
I believe so.
Because
Yeah.
I feel like I had seen somewhere that his son was working on that project. I know there was a Netflix movie that come out a while back. It wasn't Army of the Dead. It wasn't that. But there's another movie. Oh God, that's gonna drive me crazy. but I think his son had something to do with it. And in the movie, this one guy has a really rare blood type, and he's like obsessed with this girl. And when he becomes a zombie, he still has like some of his brain function, and he wants her, and he's obsessed with her still. And I'm pretty sure Romero's son had something to do with that movie. I'll have to find the name of it and send it to you, because it's actually pretty good. Like it gets some shit, but I actually enjoyed it. But anyways,
well, from the looks of things, just to kind of piggyback off of that, it looks like his widow is the one kind of leading the charge on this, along with a bunch of other people. So
okay,
hopefully it'll be good. I don't know how you felt about some of the later Living Dead entries, but I'm not saying they were bad. It's just there were some interesting concepts that I don't feel like landed as well as maybe like Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead. Just my opinion. But I mean, it was interesting to see concepts still being explored and him trying to do different things with it. I don't know if anyone saw this. I'm pretty sure I posted this up on the Facebook page, but an actor, Mark Gilpin, who played Sean Brody in Jaws 2, passed away at 56. It seemed like he was, I feel like he had cancer, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. And I didn't know this. I'd kind of wondered before, but you don't want to make assumptions. But apparently his sister is Roz from Frasier, who, if you've ever watched Frasier, he was like his, I don't know what you call him, person in the booth in the radio station, engineer, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Radio engineer, sound engineer. So I didn't know that, but I thought that was interesting. But sad that he passed, because it was funny that about the same time that news dropped was I think the same week that the Podcasters Disassembled episode, in which I happen to be on, talking and defending and arguing in favor of Jaws 2, talking about how I feel like it's an underrated sequel that people forget about. People always remember Jaws 3 and 4 because they're so atrocious, and no one ever talks about Jaws 2, and I feel like it gets lumped into the bad sequel category, and it doesn't deserve that. I feel like it's a very serviceable sequel that's never going to live up to the original, but it's good.
Yeah.
For what it is, it's a really good movie, in my opinion. Last thing that I have, because I think I've just taken all my options here. I don't see any other news that I want to talk about, but this is something I'm very curious about. I'm excited about.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this director has done a lot of great work, but Scream 7 is going to be directed by Christopher Landon, who, if you don't know his name, Happy Death Day, Happy Death Day 2, Freaky, 3 fantastic movies with an interesting take on material that I didn't think would work until I watched them, and I thought, this is amazing. In fact, I don't know if I'm expecting him to do something with Scream in that way, because I would love to see him try to find something, take that formula, it's like take Scream and mash it with this. But you have to do it in a way that doesn't make the film seem not like a Scream movie, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He has to find a way to maintain the tone of what a Scream movie is, but if he can utilize his gift for mashing movies, then I am all for it.
Yeah.
But I just don't know what the concept, I can't think of a movie right off the top of my head that would be like, all right, take Scream and then mash it with this, and there's your Scream 7. But if he can do that, then I'm fucking sold. I can't wait to see what he comes up with, because I feel like he has a unique take on horror material, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Even
most definitely.
If you're just looking outside of the genre mashing, that would be perfect for Scream, would it not? Genre mashing, it's all about the genre itself, so find another genre, and it's like, well, all right, well, what if horror does this, but now you're smashing it with that? Because surely to God, there is a horror genre that has done that maybe started here and then kind of went off into left field and became something else. That could be the exploration for that movie. I don't know what that is, but just kind of thinking about it, just in the moment, surely to God, there's something out there.
Just to bring this up, because, I have to talk about this once every episode. I feel like he would work really well doing a Nightmare on Elm Street film.
Yeah.
Because it's already such a crazy concept. There's dreams and everything. You know what I would love to see, though? A horror movie that sort of follows the Hangover movies. Maybe have a killer who doesn't remember what he did the night before.
Ooh,
That would be
okay.
kind of cool. And maybe by the end of it, he gets his memory back, and then shit hits the fan.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he thinks he's.
All right.
Maybe there's a survivor, and the survivor's hunting him down, and he thinks the survivor that he didn't kill is actually the killer.
Okay.
Okay. Just a thought.
I mean, hey, it's interesting enough. There could be something there. You never know.
And the movie I was thinking of, real quick, was called Day of the Dead Bloodline.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that, but I've never watched it.
It's not the best movie ever, but it is entertaining for what it is. But as you were saying, sorry.
No, I remember I came across this, for fuck's sake. I have not watched the trailer for this. I think I posted it up on the Facebook page. I have no interest in watching it, but
Is it the
Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Death and Porridge. I have no hopes for that movie. They're just going to continue this rote bullshit. But, good on you if you want to watch it and you enjoy it, whatever. I'm more looking forward to the movie that came out, which will be this past week by the time all of you listen, is Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Yes.
Hopefully we can get to see that, because I've been hearing a lot of great things, and maybe we can talk about it on this show soon. If not, it'll probably be when it hits Peacock, which it will.
Fun fact, too, Dracula in it, since he looks monstrous and everything, practical effects.
Yes.
Which
I've heard there's a little bit of CG.
Yeah.
It's a little shoddy, but they say it's few and far between.
And
so it's not often.
I am completely fine with CGI, especially when they use it with practical effects. I know we've had that conversation before. It heightens it. It makes it just so much so much better. Man. Yeah, I saw the Goldilocks thing when you posted it, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to just walk away. And, I was trying to think about that the other day. All these horror movies based off of, children's stories. And, like, there's a Pinocchio horror movie that came out in, like, the 80s or the 90s. And I remember watching that because I remember there's a scene where he's at the door and there's a girl and she's pushing on the door because it's not a door that she can lock or anything. And the tip of his nose is sharp. And he's lying to her, and he's like, I'm not going to hurt you. And his nose goes through the door, and it stabs through her hand. And, I was a kid when I first watched it, so I was like, this is crazy as hell. But thinking about it now, I'm like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever seen. And, then we get, what was it? Ginger Dead Man.
Yeah, god damn it. I remember, yep.
The only thing about that movie that makes that movie even, like, remotely watchable, like, not even the whole movie, but just like Googling to watch certain scenes. Gary Busey's insane, and he voices the Ginger Dead Man. So to hear him just be nuts and be Gary Busey, you're like, okay.
I'm Gary Busey. I'm a giant talking cookie, and I'm going to kill you.
He's
today.
nuts. And, he's actually been kicked out of a lot of the conventions. Because,
I wonder why.
Well, apparently he's harassed a lot of women at him.
I can believe it.
And I think it's kind of cool. They're starting to call out some of these. And I've seen it happen a time or two, and it's been called out. But there's a few of these celebrities who they think just because they're celebrities, they can, do whatever they want. But, and I'm not going to go into detail in this, but the writers' strikes, I wanted to bring that up just real quick. The writers and the actors are striking. To all the people out there who don't understand why, there's a lot to do with unsafe working conditions. They're not paid how they should be paid.
Right.
I understand we see these articles about, certain actors making millions of dollars a year, but what it actually boils down to is there are a lot of actors that don't make very much money.
Yeah.
And they have to make, from what my understanding is, they have to make $26,000 a year in order to be eligible for things like insurance and things like that. And there's a lot of actors that are not getting paid like that. There's working conditions that are no good, and it's just a big mess. Not to mention the fact that AI is starting to become a big problem because studios are trying to get performers to sign away their likeness. And if you can pay somebody to create an AI version of you to perform in whatever you want them to perform in, well, that's a problem. The writers' strikes are sort of for the same reason. Writers have always been treated like crap in Hollywood, though.
Yeah, and I understand a lot of their strife as well because it's coming down to being able to work, maybe say for if you had where we see a lot of TV shows, and I know I've argued in favor of shorter seasons for the sake of narrative, and I guess I've not really looked at it from another perspective. But when you have some of these longer shows that aren't made for Netflix, but they're made for maybe say network television or something like that, they maybe go 18 to 22 episodes. You have a writer's room who are writing these episodes. They get to stick around for the duration of the season, help kind of craft and work on the scripts if they need refined or anything like that, versus with a Netflix show. And I'm using Netflix because I don't feel like that they're any better than any of these other streamers. They're just probably one of the worst if you ask me, but they'll say The Witcher. Okay, I'll use that as an example. I don't know if this is the case, but I'm going to use it as an example since it just recently hit. 8 episodes. You essentially have writers come in, they map out the 8 episodes, and then that is the end of their journey. They just got paid to write those episodes, and they're out. So their payday is done. They just got paid for writing that little bit, so there's no steady paycheck coming in for being part of the crew. They just needed them to write words on a page, get them started, and they'll take it from there. That is not the way to write and keep narrative structure on a series. Okay, this is why a lot of things do not work anymore. When you hear people complain that there's no character development, you don't care for anybody because no one took the time. Everyone's worried about the spectacle. They're not developing characters for you to care about. And that is the crux of every story. Make me care about the people who I'm watching.
Yep.
The spectacle is the last thing that you should be worried about. It's fun, but if I don't care about the characters, why the fuck do I care about the spectacle?
Yep.
You know?
Well, and
it means nothing.
You take a look at the things that have come out that have been successful. And even from a horror movie perspective, you look at horror movies that have been really successful, that people have really grown attached to. Normally the people that have written those movies have also been the directors of those movies.
Mm-hmm.
They've built it up. They've created it. Just kicking people to the curb after they write for you is not just a horrible thing to do. It hurts the overall, like you said, it hurts the overall story. And like I said, I'm not going to get into this a whole lot. Things are getting put on hold now. There's been a lot of pushback. I was getting really excited about the new Deadpool movie coming out.
Yeah.
There's a chance that that's going to be delayed even further than it already has, because it was going to come out early. Now they're saying that it's delayed again. It's even affecting the conventions. As I was telling you off the mic earlier, the Horror Hound convention, they posted a story up on Facebook, on their actual Facebook page, saying that some of the celebrities won't have things to sign. They'll have missing things to sign. So the convention center is actually going to provide some free things to get signed.
Nice.
And that made me think, does that mean that whenever we go and we buy, we buy an autograph, we pay for an autograph and we pick one of the pictures that they have up on their table. Do they get charged by the studio every time they print off a still from the movie?
Yeah, I never thought about that.
They're making money off of something that has to do with the film. So is the studio well, you're making your money because you belong, you belong to us. It's just like they don't sponsor the show, but I will just put it out here. There's a company called Dead Sled Coffee. I get coffee from them. They have a Robert Englund roast. When they originally were going to do it, it was all Nightmare on Elm Street themed. It was a picture of Robert Englund on the front of the coffee. He wasn't in his Freddy garb. It was just him. It was a sketch that somebody did of Robert Englund, but he had a Freddy glove on, and the Freddy glove was holding the coffee mug. Well, because of licensing stuff, they had to change it back to Robert Englund. Now, that was because Robert Englund was talking to them and everything else. Yes, Robert Englund is Freddy, but when it comes to the legality stuff, Robert Englund does not own Freddy.
Yeah.
Fast forward down the line here, Dead Sled Coffee gets a deal made with New Line Cinema, and they start making Nightmare on Elm Street coffee. Robert Englund gets nothing from that. He does get something from the deal he made with them himself.
Mm-hmm.
But think about that. it's just like with the streaming services. Sure, somebody's in a movie. They make some money off of that. They might be able to get residuals, but normally they only get residuals if their show is still on television. Every time it hits a streaming service, they get nothing. Not a dime. It's just like the only reason I use this is because I just saw him the other day. There used to be a show on Nickelodeon called Drake and Josh.
Yeah.
Josh Peck was one of the guys on the show. He does not get any residuals from that show. Come to find out, they paid him a flat rate for every episode, and then extras that would come on the show, they offered them residuals, but they don't get hardly any residuals.
That's bullshit.
Keep that in mind. I don't know if every studio does that, but keep that in mind. You know, celebrities, yes, they live in a certain light in our eyes, but it's not exactly how you think it is. A lot of their money is not earned from them performing. It's from them making proper investments, if they're smart enough to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Studio execs are making millions and millions every year, but the people that make those things possible are getting cheated.
Yeah.
And
they're only asking for what they're owed. That's it.
Yeah. And, you know, and I want people listening to keep in mind, I'm not talking about like Robert Downey Jr. or, you know, like Clint Eastwood's or Jack Nicholson's or people like that. Those are huge names. The studios pay them tons of money. They get the good deals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like Robert De Niro is a perfect example. You would think that Robert De Niro made a lot of money off of acting. But do you know what movie he made the most money off of ever out of his whole career? Joker.
No idea. Wow.
And the reason he made money off of Joker is because he told them that he wanted a percentage of the box office.
Smart.
All of his money, all of his fortune, he earned from business ventures. Like I didn't know he owns several restaurants.
Did not.
You know, it's just, I know this isn't necessarily, you know, horror related, but it is scary to think about what's going on, because this just goes to show you indie studios, I feel, take better care of people too. I feel like these indie studios are just where it's at. You know, they're creating really unique content. They're thinking outside the box. They're not having to deal with what the executives think is the safe option to make the most money. I don't know. I'm really sold on the whole indie studio scene.
Well, I mean, while we're talking about the strike, I mean, A24 has been operating outside the studio system. They've been helping actors still be able to work. I know that they had some certain actors have gotten vouchers to work on the productions because they're not part of the union, so they're able to operate outside of it. And more power to them. I mean, all the shit that they continue to put out. Yeah. I mean, my God. So, you know, the studios need to check their wallets and realize, hey, there's a lot of other people. They are not the ones making the money. It's the people down below who are making the damn movies. You give them the tools to do it right, and they will make you more money hand over fist, but you've got to give them better working conditions.
See, and that's my thing. Like, there is this isn't about studios, but it will play a part in what I'm going to say here. There is a CEO that everybody said would fail because he decided at the time everybody in his company was going to make $70,000 a year. Everyone. It didn't matter what job you did. And everybody told him he would fail because, you know, his people would be mad that some people were making more money than other, people for doing different jobs. And they all said his company would fail. But all of his employees have stuck with him, and his company's doing better than ever. Now, I'm not saying that studios need to do that. But what I'm going to say is this. You pay your writers a fair wage. Maybe have a percentage of whatever the films earn go to the writers. Do the same thing for your actors. You're going to get better content. You're going to get content that flows better. And overall, you're going to have a higher quality that you're putting out there. And more people will become invested in it. Perfect example, one of the longest running shows on television, The Simpsons. Matt Groening takes care of all of his people. They all write on the show, and they all get a piece of the pie at the end of the day. And The Simpsons is still going strong. Has The Simpsons always been the best show? No, it has, it does have its episodes that you're like, it's okay. But it's still on, and it's still doing well. It's still turning a profit. Another person I know he's been under fire for some random things, but I'm just going to say this as far as like the show goes. Seth MacFarlane, like Family Guy and all of that. From what my understanding is, he actually takes pretty good care of the people that work under him, and his stuff's still doing really well. I know Fox is owned by Disney now. I know I'm still waiting for a new season of The Orville, which I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
Yeah.
But it's just proven. Take care of the people that put you where you are. I don't care if you're a CEO. If you're making $100 million a year or some asinine number like that, and people are starving, guess what? You're still going to be happy making $10 million a year, $50 million a year. You're still going to be making a lot of money, and you could provide for the people that are putting you where you need to be.
Yeah.
That's the thing that has slowed down so much production on so many amazing things. That's the reason why it's taken so long to get new films out there. That's why the chances of us seeing a new Nightmare on Elm Street movie are dwindling. At this point, it's not even about Robert Englund being Freddy anymore. I know you probably never expected to hear me say that, but facts are facts. Could Robert Englund play Freddy again? Maybe. Could they do that? I know we've had this conversation. Could they make that work? Yes, they could. But at this point, the chances of them making a new Nightmare on Elm Street while he's still alive, so that he could at least see it and maybe say, hey, this is a new Nightmare on Elm Street, I have a cameo in it, the chances of that even happening are dwindling, because it's all about who can make the most money. But if they would even the odds, they would all make a lot more money. Because here's the thing, if you and I had an idea and we argued over who was going to make more money, we wouldn't put as much effort into making the idea work. So we'd put something out there, but it might not be the best. So yeah, people are going to see it. But let's say 100 people see our project that we put out because they're like, it looked okay. And I get 40%, you get 60%. And your 60% is 100,000. My 40%'s whatever. And then we rewind that back and you and I are able to be like, we're going to just split it 50-50. We got this. We're going to split it 50-50. We're going to make sure that it works. And because we've eliminated all the arguing and we've gone 50-50, and let's make sure that we put something really good out there.
Yeah.
You put something better out there, all of a sudden, instead of 100,000 people seeing it, you've got, 500,000 people that have gone and seen it. They don't think about that, though. It all boils down to the dollar amount.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm being random, but yeah, if anybody out there wants to know about the writer's strike, just look into it. Like, just Google it. Look into it. There's a lot that they're not showing. And I know Ron Perlman just posted up a video a while back about it. One of the executives said that they're okay with just letting the strikes last because eventually people will start losing their houses and they'll come crawling back.
Yeah, that was some bullshit, but it doesn't surprise me a bit if that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But sorry about that. We're a little...
No, that's fine.
Whew, but
I mean, it's something that we all should be passionate about. I mean, these are people who make the movies we love, and you've got just some ignorant ass, money-hungry bastards who don't give a shit. But, if we start voting with our wallets, as I've argued numerous times before, then, no one will go see the damn movies. As clearly has been the case this past year, where no one's really going to see the big blockbusters because no one cares anymore.
yeah.
And then you get something new like Barbie, and then what are they going to do with that? They're going to milk Hasbro for everything they're worth, and they completely missed the point.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway.
Anywho, I do have a random... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say I had a random thing real quick. We've been gone for a month, and a lot's happened. We've talked about a lot of news. I had a whoopsie, and I just wanted to tell you about it, and I'm pretty sure the fans will get a laugh out of it. I had my pan too hot the other day when I was cooking, and apparently a olive oil facial was in the works for me. I tried to make myself Freddy Krueger apparently, so just wanted to point that out. I'm got a little bit of a spot on my forehead still, but I don't recommend it.
I don't see why you would.
I would say a mask or makeup to look like Freddy would be ideal, and that was just a slight burn, so I understand why he's so pissed at all the parents. Just gonna put that out there. I don't know. I had a moment. But I need to tell you that because, yeah, it's been a month.
Yeah, it has been a month.
It's been nuts, and I'm glad to be back because
Sure.
this helps keep my sanity. I'm not gonna lie.
Right.
Oh man, do you have anything else? You've talked about a lot of news today. Do you have any fun horror stuff or anything?
I think I've tapped out. I think I covered most of the things I wanted to talk about. So if I forgot anything, Ramblers, hit us up on Twitter and say, hey, you forgot to talk about this shit that happened in the month of July while you were gone. And you can do that at Horror Ramblings. If you got more to say, tweet's just not going to cut it. If you got a whole list of things that I missed, send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com. If you want to discuss horror with like-minded individuals or keep up with the news, I try to post regularly on Facebook anytime that I see a new trailer or story or anything like that. Even merch. I try to post up new merch that I think our Ramblers might enjoy. You can do that on Facebook, or you can join us on Discord in our Ramblers room. You can even find us on Instagram to see an assortment of horror images. I know we've been lacking in that, but we've had nothing to post. If you've been feeling generous, want to support the show, you can head on over to patreon.com/pencil and paper productions, and you can help the show grow by leaving a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting app. You don't even have to write a review. You can just be like, thumbs up, and that'll do it. Tell your friends to find us on their favorite podcasting platform as well, and they can do the same thing over there. And if you happen to be using Spotify, see if we've posted up any new questions and polls, and let us know what you think. Finally, if you want a central hub for all things, go to pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes for your convenience.
And remember, guys, stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even more.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.